These New York charges, residential mortgage fraud, among them, one of the most serious. So he's looking at 1 to 3 years minimum, 8 to 25 years maximum. These are huge ranges, but those would be inescapable, right? There's nothing a president can do to pardon on a state charge. James is the first Attorney General of New York to be indicted by the Justice Department, and it follows a nearly 6-month investigation into claims of mortgage fraud. Now, that is a charge the United States Justice Department rarely brings against individuals, but of course, James is not an ordinary individual. Trump considers her an enemy after she sued him in 2022, accusing Trump of lying about his real estate empire and inflating the value of his properties.
Trump did acknowledge that there could have been a mistake on his financial statement when it came to the value of his Trump Tower apartment, but he said that's why his statements included disclaimer clauses. Quote, there's a disclaimer clause where you don't have to get sued by the Attorney General of New York. Is that in any way a legitimate defense?
No, and the judge already found it wasn't. The judge said, listen, you just can't offer miscalculating or wrong and misleading and fraudulent information and then say, wait, just kidding, do your own due diligence here. You have to be able to rely on what's actually being said. So the judge already resolved that issue. Now, what he's trying to do, though, is suggest, and you can't have both worlds, Jake. He can't on the one hand say he's in control of everything, on the other hand say, look, everyone else told me this and I handed it over and delegated. Both can't be true on a fraud trial.
They have to prove that it's done knowingly. And so
So if it's a mistake, that's actually relevant criminally. It has to be, if it is a mistake and the person says, look, it's obviously a mistake, here's evidence it's a mistake, then you can't prove intent, and that's important.
They've acknowledged, Leticia James seems not, there was an error on a power of attorney form. They would try to argue that that was no intent of wrongdoing if she was presenting throughout, and the bank itself did not feel it was defrauded because they had the correct information despite one false document.
Well, Jake, the key question, assuming this is in fact a mortgage fraud case, is whether Leticia James intentionally and specifically made a false representation. So as Kara said, now they're going to have to prove their case to a jury eventually beyond a reasonable doubt. And if this is a mistake or something that was done inadvertently, that's not going to be enough to support a criminal charge against Leticia James.
You know, it's funny how differently they talk about both instances. Completely different the way that they speak about it. Completely different. That's why I played, those two clips there at the beginning. I've been meaning to actually post those as YouTube shorts, but, I've had some other things to post as YouTube shorts, which I'm sure most of you know already. You watch my YouTube shorts. And if you don't, make sure you're checking them out because you're definitely missing out on some good stuff. But if you guys aren't familiar with the Leticia James situation, here's some more information about that. And we stick around because I got some more clips that I want to get into. Let's dive in.
Joining me now is former federal prosecutor and former acting ICE director, Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, good to see you. Thanks so much for weighing in on this. You were actually a federal prosecutor in that office that indicted James. Your reaction?
Yeah, this is very interesting, and certainly the Democrats aren't saying no one is above the law today, but this is actually more interesting than I thought upon reading the indictment, because she did this, or allegedly claimed it was her residence, so she would get a favorable rate, and the amount of money she benefited from this is quite substantial. I believe it's about almost $19,000, so that's hardly insignificant. So this will be very interesting to play out, but it seems to me if she filled out these forms saying it's for one thing and then used it exclusively for another thing, which is as a rental property, and just simply did so to make money, I'm not sure what the defense will be. Maybe there is one, but it does seem this could be fairly clear cut. And interestingly about her statement and the other statements, they're not saying, hey, I didn't lie on the forum. They're just saying, the political stuff, which is, rich and ironic and everything else. But this does seem like it could be quite a clean case. If they prove she made the statements and prove she never lived there and just rented it out, or lived there for a certain period and then rented it out, I think she's got some problems.
Well, I'll tell you, we go back to how Leticia James was trying so hard to, quote unquote, get Trump. And part of her efforts, I remember her saying she wanted to take away his property. That's why the Democrats are trying to, allege that this is some kind of retribution. But the facts are the fact. If she lied to a financial institution, if she lied in terms of these properties, then it's very hard to argue that. And despite all of her efforts to get Trump, this is about the law.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because the other side of it is, if they do have evidence that she committed these crimes, are they supposed to just walk away from it because they don't want to be accused of political retribution? So, but it is funny. She tried to ruin him financially, ruin his business, crush his employees as part of this orchestrated scheme to get him for political reasons. And remember, she ran on it. So it wasn't like, anyone could say hers was not political.
Absolutely. She absolutely ran on it. She said she was going to get Trump. That was all her campaigning for.
So you heard that there. She's probably going to go down for this. And what's going to happen is mainstream media and Democrats are all going to say it was a bogus case, was a bogus trial, blah, 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 blah. But they never said that with Trump, though. So it's just the same double standard that they always, run with. But I got a couple clips from Scott Jennings, who I actually kind of like. Shout out to Scott Jennings. But he had some interesting things to say on CNN as well. Check out this first clip.
Look, I mean, Leticia James is the absolute worst possible poster child for the argument of selective prosecution. Her entire political career has been on the idea of selectively prosecuting one person, Donald J. Trump. Whether you think the merits of the case are strong or weak, or how you think it's going to play out, going out tonight and crying and whining and fussing about selective prosecution when it comes to Leticia James, who ran an entire campaign saying she was going to go after Trump, the cases she brought, it was only because of Trump. I don't think the American people are going to have too much sympathy for it. Look.
So as you saw there, he was pointing out the fact that, Leticia James literally campaigned on going after Trump, and then you saw that lady in the background shaking her head. No, that's not the case. Well, thank goodness for the internet, right? Because videos, they live on forever. Once they're on the internet, even if you try to scrub the internet, somebody has downloaded the video somewhere, and it's on a hard drive from somewhere, and all it takes is just a couple of clicks to re-upload it back to the internet. And thank goodness that is the case here, because I've got the evidence. She did campaign on it. And if you don't believe me, well, here it is.
Focus on Donald Trump. We need to follow his money. What is fueling my soul right now is Trump.
This illegitimate president. I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him, and then going home.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president.
Yeah, so you heard that there. She literally campaigned on going after this man. She literally said, I look forward to becoming the Attorney General, going into my office, suing Donald Trump, and then going home. Those words came out of her own mouth. But on mainstream media and Democrats, they'll always tell you, oh, it wasn't political when she went after him. It wasn't political. She wasn't. Yes, it was. And she told us that. Will you go after him? Yeah, I'm going to be a pain in his ass. Could you imagine if a Republican campaigned like that? Mainstream media would literally be on fire, yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs. Oh my goodness, political retribution. This Republican is campaigning on going after Democrats. How dare he? Blah, the whole nine. But they had nothing to say about Leticia James. And as a matter of fact, they try to cover for it now by telling us that it never happened. It never happened. It's the same thing that they were doing with the border, right? You guys remember? Oh my goodness, it is so like you guys all remember when the Biden and Kamala administration and mainstream media kept telling us the border is closed, the border is secure, the border is secure, even though we saw video after video after video of people pouring into this country through the border. But the border's closed, the border's secure. It's the same situation, man. It is the exact same situation. And honestly, it's pretty sad to watch the Democrat Party, stoop so low. To just blatantly try to lie to the American people like that is just absolutely mind-boggling. In my humble opinion. But I want to play this last clip from CNN where Abby Phillips actually thought that she had a great statement here, and honestly, it really wasn't. But check it out.
She tried to ruin his life and try to make it so he couldn't run for
So
president.
what are we going to do?
I
She
mean, come on.
brought forward a case that she thought
I
was
just-
meritorious,
I
and
just-
it was found
Thank
that
God.
it
By the
was
way,
meritorious.
by the way, thank God she failed in her ultimate goal. Otherwise, we wouldn't be bringing these
But
hostages
Scott,
on
I mean,
Monday.
there
That's all
wasn't
I
the
have.
argument about that case, that civil case that she brought, that there were no victims to the alleged wrongdoing.
That was always
wasn't that the argument?
One of the
so then,
defenses.
so then, wouldn't, if you were to apply that to this situation, how do you justify then charging her over $18,000, which, by the way, again, like, those are allegations.
Right,
We don't know if there were communications between her and the mortgage company about the change of a change of status for the property or anything like that. We don't know about that. But do you think that this is more of a crime with a victim than the one against Trump?
I can only read back to you her own words. When powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. That's what James said. That's the standard
So
she
you
applied
think
to
that
Trump.
that applies to Trump then?
I think we're.
I mean, she thought it did.
So Scott, hold on. Do you think that applies to Trump? If you think it applies to her, fine.
I'm giving
you think it applies to
her
Trump?
justification for prosecuting him was
think
that.
do you think it
I don't know
applies?
why they wouldn't
Listen,
apply.
as they say, two wrongs don't make a right. She's either wrong about Trump or you're wrong about Trump. Which one is it?
No, look, she brought the case. She went through the process in New York. What happened happened. Now she's got a case against her.
So Trump's
the process
case
will
was
play
legitimate then, in your
Oh,
mind?
I don't think it should have ever been brought. I think it was a travesty.
But you can't have it both ways. One way
really
with Trump
can't.
and one way
No.
with
They're two
Trump.
different cases.
They are
You know, I
not. You
totally
cannot
agree.
have them two different
Go
ways.
ahead.
They're lecturing Scott Jennings on not having it both ways while they're having it both ways themselves, right? It's fine to go after Trump for this, right? That was all fine and dandy. It wasn't political. Everything was on the up and up. You know, just wait until the trial plays out. We'll see how it all falls together. But with Leticia James, oh my goodness, how dare he? This is political. This is nonsense. Nobody should be going after Leticia James, blah, blah, blah. So it's fine if it's against Trump, but it isn't fine if it's against a Democrat. It's cool if they do it, but it's a problem if we do it. Yeah, she definitely didn't cook with that one. Somebody need to throw that apron away. She ain't cooking at all. You know, my goodness. Absolutely not. But there's a double standard for you, right? There's the double standard for you that we always see from the Democrat Party. They never want to hold themselves accountable. But whenever it comes to a Republican, oh yeah, we gotta make sure we hold them to the highest standard possible, right? It's cool to go after Republicans, but if a Democrat, oh no, the sky is falling. This is authoritarianism, you know. This is dictator-like, but it wasn't dictator-like to ban a sitting president off of social media. It wasn't dictator-like to drag the leading opposition candidate into courtroom after courtroom after courtroom after courtroom. It wasn't dictator-like to literally change laws in New York to redo the statute, to create a window within the statute of limitations to bring back old cases, right? Just to go after one man. That wasn't dictator-like. That wasn't authoritarian. Like, my goodness, man. These people, bro, they absolutely disgust me. And I hope the Democrat Party never wins for like the next 30 years until they completely reform the party. Because this Democrat Party of today has just absolutely lost the plot. But y'all get in the comments and let me know your thoughts and your opinions about all of this. Do you think Leticia James is guilty or is she innocent? Let me know. Peace and love. I'm out.